Welcome, y'all, to this edition of History and Highballs, the Power of the Pivot. My name is Stacy, and I handle adult education here at the museum. So whenever you join us for one of these History and Highballs programs, you and I get to virtually spend the evening together listening to some incredible stories about North Carolina places and people and what makes our state so special. If you enjoyed tonight's program, we invite you to head over to the museum's website at ncmuseumofhistory.org, where you can learn more about upcoming programs, exhibits, and digital resources. This is also where you can find more information about joining our North Carolina Museum of History Associates. Our associates and foundation provide crucial funding and support to the museum, which, in addition to many other things, helps make programming like this evening's event possible. We would like to thank those of you who donated funds towards this evening's program. We continue to do our best to keep our programs free to attend, but there are costs associated with keeping our series going. We just want to thank you all so much for your continued generous support of the museum. A few quick housekeeping items for this evening. We ask that you please keep your mics muted throughout the entirety of the program, and to please type any questions that you have for our guest speaker into the chat function located at the bottom center of your screen. At the end of the program, I will ask our speaker as many of your questions as time allows. So it's my honor to introduce and welcome this evening's speaker, Christy Ferretti, chef and co-owner of Pine Valley Market. Ferretti, a Florida native, spent many years in the catering business and as a personal chef in Orlando. She has been at home in the kitchen since she could walk. Ferretti credits her love for food and helpfulness to her Italian heritage. A graduate of the University of Central Florida with a degree in education, Ferretti enjoys sharing her knowledge of food and wine with customers and friends. So Christy, welcome. I'm going to turn it over to you. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Stacy. I think I might ask you to mute yourself, but put your face back on, because I do feel sort of stupid sitting here looking at, just to paint a picture for all of you, this is weird. Of course, I don't know who's on this call. I don't know if you're 100 or if you're 20, but 20-year-olds have this gift of being able to hold the phone and look at themselves and talk, and 47-year-olds don't. So this is weird. I'm sitting at Pine Valley Market. I'm staring at myself into a phone and talking to people I don't know. So bear with me. It's a little nerve-wracking, but thank you for having me. Thanks for calling. I appreciate the interest. It feels a little strange to just sit here and talk about myself, but I hope you guys find it entertaining. My biggest fear when I speak publicly is that I'm going to say a 4-letter word that I shouldn't say. So we'll hope that that doesn't happen. Although I think I did notice somewhere in the registration that you had to be 18 years old to participate. So, okay, good. All right, so power of the pivot. Let's be honest. I was asked for a topic several months ago, and pivot seems to have been the little key word that everybody has been throwing around these last couple of years. So I threw out the title before I really got to think about how I was going to make it relevant. So I've done a lot of thinking over the last couple of months, and of course, we all have this like iconic image of Ross in the hallway with the couch from Friends. And really the truth of that is that he was going to be completely stuck. I mean, if they did not pivot and they did not move or change, he was going to be done for. And so not moving forward, not moving backwards, that is really the power of the pivot, is really to force you, or at least force me into moving forward in my career, in my life. So as a teacher, I think, so you kind of mentioned in my opening, or your introduction of me, thank you, a teaching degree in language arts education at University of Central Florida. So of course I go back to Webster and look at the definition for pivot. So we have a verb and a noun. So the verb, begin to run or manage something in a completely different way. So there's the obvious. And then the noun, that it is the actual central point and the shaft and the mechanism that turns or oscillates. So there's something there that's going to force that pivot. I have to make my little, sorry guys, technology and a 47-year-old, sorry. Something there that's going to force that pivot to actually happen. And so I want to take you a little bit through my life, not to bore you, but there's some pretty key things throughout my career that's gotten me here that were pivotal moments for me. Of course, on a daily basis as a caterer, I'm thrown into events where there's rain all of a sudden, or the flowers didn't show up, or the photographer knocks over the cake, or the stove doesn't work. And so I feel like in a lot of ways I'm pivoting and having to change on a daily basis. But who I am and how did I get here, really? Of course, I was raised in Florida, but how did this transplanted Yankee from Florida end up in small town North Carolina? My wife and I got married several years ago, but we met back in, 1997, I believe it was. We got together in 2002. She was in one town in Florida, I was in another, and we really kind of wanted to start over. So she is a Goldsboro native. And so we came to Goldsboro to visit family, ended up in Wilmington visiting some friends. She had gone to UNCW. And there was this little place on College Road called Pine Valley Market. And Pine Valley Market was started in 97 by Lolo, Lauren Shannon. It's a cute little market, but Lola was kind of done with it. And it was always my dream to take this path, I guess. So food has always been a huge thing to me. And while I had a teaching degree, I moved into sales after a few years of teaching. And in that position, I was able to start working in catering for friends and doing some private chef services. And that's where I found my true passion was. So that's sort of how we ended up here in Wilmington. I learned a lot in my formative years about food. My father was a appliance salesman, has nothing to do with food, but his passion as well really came through in his outside of work time. So he worked hard in a small business to raise 5 kids. And in his off time, what gave him true joy was to prepare food for people. So he often did like fundraising dinners for schools and charities and things like that. He started a food festival for the Italian American Civic Association in Vero Beach, Florida. That's the town where I grew up. And there were a better part of 10 to 15,000 people that came out yearly to this food festival, if you think of it like an Oktoberfest, but it was all Italian food. So I grew up sort of in that realm. I'm the youngest of 5, but I'm the youngest by 12 years. And here's the Italian piece that you see. My son always tells me to keep my hands still. Youngest of 5 by 12 years. So that means I was really kind of an only child in our household. So I was sort of in the kitchen all the time, just wondering what was going on. And family meals at our house were 15 people at least, probably on a Sunday. That meant the screen door opened, strangers, but family friends came in, often brought friends with them. And we just had an open communal table to anybody that wanted to come. And I love that food sort of does that for people. So that's, I guess, where my passion for food sort of came from. Let's see, got a little cheat sheet down here for it for myself. When we came to Wilmington, 2003, we bought the market. We sort of gutted it, started over, and I really didn't know what I was doing. I knew what I wanted to do. I knew that I had visions of visiting New York with my family and seeing and visiting Arthur Avenue and Little Italy and, just really cool Italian ethnic markets that had big pieces of prosciutto hanging and big wheels of cheese and things like that. And so I had this vision that was what I wanted to create. I wanted to do sort of an homage to my heritage and the foods that I loved and the foods that kind of raised me. And when I got here to North Carolina, we have some pretty, at least then, and even now, strict health codes that don't allow for some of that to happen, or at least in the facility that I have. And so I realized really early on that if I stuck the course, if I stayed on that track and I didn't listen to what the clients and the customers that were still coming in, because the business had been here for about 7 years, if I didn't listen to them, I was going to not be here very long. And so I had to completely shift my entire way of thinking and figure out what it was that people wanted. And I think that having been in business now 20 years, which is crazy to me, I think that those are the moments that kept us relevant. I think that this business could have easily shut its doors many times if I didn't at least keep myself open to what else it could be. And a lot of times I will say, you can look at planned strategy. So can look at people that really have the ability to step back and look at their business and analyze numbers and analyze what's happening and make these sort of educated and informed decisions to redirect or change what they're doing. So in a sense, it's a pivot, but I think that is looked at more like a strategy. It's a planned strategy for attack to make some progress. I feel like the pivots come when it's forced, at least for me. Those are the unavoidable moments. And for me, strategy and numbers, my wife's the number person. I'm like the emotional person. So when I look at a menu and I see that, something may not be selling as well as something else, or I can't get the margin on something to make it profitable, I think of that person that orders it every Tuesday when they come in, and I think, oh no, what will so-and-so do if we don't have the whatever sandwich? And so I think that it's important to recognize that pivoting when it's forced is probably the most productive, at least for a lot of people. I've met with a lot of different business people around town, various stages in their businesses that have come and asked just how we remain relevant. And I feel like that's what they find, is that they just, you have all these reasons not to do something that you sort of in the back of your mind know needs to be done, but maybe there's fear in wanting to get it done. Maybe there's emotion in not wanting to get it done. So for me, it was the unavoidable ones, because I have that whole emotional sort of piece. I'd love to take credit for the strategy, but I do think our biggest achievements, I can't really take full credit for thinking about ahead of time. Really what I take credit for is the logistics piece in what I do. I feel like I'm more of a logistics person than I am even a chef. Although I hold my own behind the stove, I think that my ability to change and redirect what we're doing as a business has been able to keep us relevant. And it's not always easy when you do it. So I touched on the opening vision for the market. And so we were at one point literally just a market. We had coffee. It was a butcher shop when it first opened, but it was all retail kind of things. Not a ton of prepared foods, but mostly just a shop. Before gourmet was cool. We have lots of different brands that I was really familiar with in Florida that you'll see now in grocery stores. Robert Rothschild, Stonewall Kitchen, Rayo's spaghetti sauce, things like that. We sort of brought that to market here in Wilmington before you could find it in grocery stores. So we took what I thought was going to be, who we were, this Italian market, which we have Taste of Italy down the road, and they're awesome. So that wasn't there for me. And we basically just started looking at what cool brands could we bring to market? What else could we do? What could we find? And research back then was not as easy as it is now. But we managed to do that with a lot of work. And it was great because we were sort of that gourmet spot in town. In 2006, so jump ahead 3 years, I had a pretty major burn accident. And so what I will say, as a 20-something-year-old in my first business with protective parents who didn't think that it was a smart decision, the equipment was old, it was far away, it needed a lot of work, nobody knows you there, all of the sort of naysayers. As a 26-year-old, I just wanted to prove everybody wrong. And so I also had this very young sort of sense of, I have to control everything, because if I control it, then at least it's my fault, or at least I'm not going to let it fail. Sort of that, I saw it on Instagram recently, probably because our phones listen to us, right? And so they know like the things we talk about and probably the things we think at this point. But it was a picture of a t-shirt that said, "Underestimate me, I dare you." And I think that was sort of my 20-something-year-old mentality. So in 2006, I had a pretty bad burn accident. It's how I became a Carolina fan. So I hope I don't upset any Duke people. But as a Florida girl, I moved here and did not know the difference between Carolina and Duke and State. I really had no clue. I'm very well versed now. Thank you. So in the chat, please don't feel like you have to let me know. I got it. But I did become a Carolina fan because I was airlifted to Chapel Hill to the burn center. Phenomenal place, by the way. If you ever need it, don't recommend it, but that's where you should go. I was cooking a pig, which I did learn to do as a proper Southerner 3 years after being here, and was basically cleaning the cooker. It's a huge cooker that goes behind a car. I was cleaning it the following day, and I was also cooking for 400 people at a school down the road. And I was letting all of the stuff from the pig burn off. I had the regulators open. I basically unloaded a couple cans or cans of propane into the cooker with the lid down. And I had thrown some chicken on it thinking this is a great way to get ahead. I'm gonna be here all day if I don't. And I went to relight it after it had gone out. So I did have major burns to my face, which thank God are not really noticeable. My arms, my hands degloved. It was pretty brutal. I tell you that just because it clearly shut me down. I mean, it didn't shut down the business. It shut me down. I was there for a week, and then I was basically home for a month plus. And then I basically was like the weird girl with compression garments that sat by the door and said hi to everybody when they came in, because I couldn't do anything else. And that was really pivotal for me, because I had to then obviously learn how to communicate and make sure that people knew what was expected and what needed to be done, which I do think I'm relatively good at from my teaching degree. But I also had to let go of control. And that was probably the hardest thing for me. But in the end, likely the most rewarding, right? Because I was able to breathe a little bit. I was able to know that my not being here wasn't going to cause things to fail. We were on an upward motion as a premier caterer in Wilmington. We were really starting to gain some traction. And so it was sort of a great opportunity for me to know that we could do more with more people, because I didn't have to do all of it. The year following that, we were able to adopt our son through foster care. I was 13 days old when we picked him up from the hospital. He is now almost 15. For those of you that have teenagers, please feel free to offer any words of encouragement. Whew, that is a wild ride, but he is awesome. He now works with us at the market. He works with us on catering. He is the joy of our world. But that was just another opportunity for me to sort of be forced in a positive way to take a step back, to take some time, to take some little vacations, to know that other people could do some stuff and it would get done well. And I didn't have to have my hands in it. I think it was Shark Tank. I can't remember the shark's name, but one of them said in one of the interviews at one point, is when you hire people, you have to expect that they're going to do, you only can expect that they're going to be able to do 80% of what you do, or do it to 80% of what you would do it yourself. And so I really adopted that. And while some people really rise to the occasion and can do it to 100%, in most cases, no one is ever going to be you. No one's ever going to, care about your business, think about your business the way that you do. But 80% is pretty darn good. And in most cases, the end product doesn't show that 20% difference. In 2008, 2009, it was like the big recession time. I'll never forget at Christmas time and Thanksgiving time, we do a huge amount of prepared foods for Thanksgiving and Christmas. We sell prime rib, which growing up was lasagna for Christmas, not turkey, but lasagna. In the South, I learned quickly that prime rib was a big deal, and I love it. So we've now changed our family tradition, but prime rib around here was great. We carry out certified Angus beef. It is phenomenal. We've been doing that ever since we started, and it was a huge part of our holiday, our holiday traffic. And at the time, we were still this sort of retail shop, and we had wine. My wife was really behind all of the wine stuff in here. We had so much retail stuff. We had great like stocking stuffers and cool culinary things and bags and napkins, all sorts of cool stuff. People would come in and they'd get their roast, which is not cheap. And then they, literally walk around with baskets when things were just booming and just like pile stuff in. And it was fun. I mean, it was great. You're making money, but it was also fun. So when the election ended, we thought, okay, regardless of what side of any political aisle you were on, everybody's going to take a huge sigh of relief, and we're going to move into the holiday, and we're all just going to go forward. And so we had all these purchase orders waiting for all this inventory, and all the credit cards started pinging. I know it was like $30,000 worth of merchandise was coming in, and people started coming in for Christmas because the bottom had fallen out, and they're getting their roast because that's their holiday tradition, and getting it here was their tradition. And we appreciated so much that even though things were getting kind of tough, that they still wanted to spend that extra money here. But they come in and they get their roast and they left. And I mean, we literally looked at each other like at the end of the first day of Christmas pickups, and we were like, oh shit, what are we going to do? Like we literally had shelves that were full. And so we were forced at that point, to say, well, we are no longer going to be relevant. I mean, we have no choice. We were just a shop, and gone were the days where people were going to spend $8 on a salad dressing or $9 on a jelly. And so it all had to go. So we sort of liquidated all that stuff, and I think in a big sale, however we did it, and utilized it in the kitchen. And we found a way over the Christmas break to make access to our bathroom, which I'm looking at it now. So there was no access to our bathroom for the public. So you would come in, shop, and leave. And because of that, we were not allowed to have any kind of tables. So even though we had a little lunch business, it was primarily pick up and go. And if you wanted to eat it out of a to-go container at a picnic bench outside, you could. So the only thing left for us to do was literally wipe out the inventory, make access to the bathroom, and put in tables. Well, it was already getting tight. I mean, we paid everybody, but we still had this inventory. So we drained our accounts. I think we literally sort of like garage sale together tables and chairs. It was sort of this hodgepodge of shabby chic, doesn't match, whatever. And we thought, well, let's just see what happens. And we opened back up in the beginning of the year, and we just kind of waited. And thankfully, I mean, we are sort of that little best kept secret in Wilmington. So we're not a tourist destination, and the community really was aware of getting behind us. And we had days where we'd prep and barely anybody would show up, and then days where we wouldn't prep as much, and then everybody would show up. And I remember feeling just like I was on like this crazy roller coaster ride. We were just one day up, one day down, never knowing what it was going to look like. And thankfully, I guess after about a year and a half, the highs and the lows sort of plateaued out, and we got to this steady sort of stream of who knew what to expect, and it felt really, really good. But I never would have done that had we not had the recession, had we not been forced to. And in hindsight, as I sit here and look at the store and these tables and think about the people that we've met and the experiences that people have had in here, birthdays and celebrations, and just meeting of friends for holidays and things like that. Like there's so many amazing things that have happened in this space. I really can't imagine if we didn't do that, what that would be like. So that absolutely kept us relevant. We didn't pay ourselves for 2 years. I remember running to the bank, trying to make sure the lights stayed on. I mean, it was crazy, but we managed to get it done. The other piece of that is how we were forced to sort of really change in our catering, because people still wanted to get married. And so, the easiest way to make your catering cheaper, your wedding cheaper, is to invite less people, right? So people didn't want to do that. They still wanted to have these gatherings that they had planned, but the tenderloin was no longer really in their budget. So we had to be creative in our ways to break down strip loins or ribeye loins to be able to present them still in a carved way that was a small piece of meat on their plate, as opposed to a big hunk of ribeye or something like that. So we had to be creative in the things and the food options that we offered. And that was kind of also forced during that time. So that was 2008, 2009, 2018, Hurricane Florence. Who remembers that one? So, not a lot changed about Pine Valley Market during that time, other than what changed that week. And I think for me, I sent Kathy and Alex away, and I stayed, and I cried on the couch and wondered why am I here? Why did I do this? Became very, very real after they had left. And thankfully things worked out and turned out well for us. But I ended up getting involved with World Central Kitchen. And I guess in part because I stayed and I wasn't forced by any means. I couldn't get there fast enough. I wanted so badly to be a part of that effort. I was honored to work alongside Jose Andres and sort of his core team that started World Central Kitchen with him. But during that time, we turned the store, once we got power back on and the roof fixed and all that kind of stuff, we sort of became an annex for them. And so we were no longer who we were as Pine Valley Market, but we were making meals for World Central Kitchen to distribute the same way that they did, which is the big aluminum pans that feed 40 And they have, so many specs that go along with what they have to have in them. And so we did that for several weeks, and then even months after, we were able to continue because of people's generosity monetarily to just keep preparing stuff to help the community. So it was a forced change. It wasn't too much of a change of what we know how to do, but it certainly was a change from our regular day to day. And since the whole world kind of came to a screeching halt around here, it was nice to be able to, I guess that's really what it is. It was nice to be able to sort of change what we were doing to be able to help people, because not every business could be of service to the community. And I think that's been the most beautiful thing for me each time, especially as we move now into the pandemic parts of my notes. Like, that's been the best part, is that every time we've pivoted, it's not just that, yeah, it's kept us in business, and yes, it's provided, a life for me and my family and the people that work here who are absolutely incredible. But we're still servicing our community. I mean, it's so cool to me. We have an open kitchen. It's so cool to me to watch people come in and bring their kids, and now their kids come in, and now their kids come in with kids. And that just means that these gray hairs were earned, darn it. I feel so blessed. I feel so old when that happens, but stepping up to the plate during those times has really, really just been meaningful to me as a business owner, as part of the community. And so that brings us to how pivot happened, or how even the topic of pivot happened, and that's the pandemic. And so for us, we don't know what we don't know. And when March 2020 came around, we all thought that if we looked at each other crooked, we were gonna die, right? So we shut down immediately. We sent 90% of our staff home that needed to be with their kids, or daycare or that kind of thing. And we figured out who was still able to be here and wanted to be here, felt safe being here, and who could commit to keeping their bubble really small and not going to grocery stores and all of that kind of stuff. And so that left really 3 of us. And we literally created like the school drop-off line. It was like the school pickup line. So you could drive a circle around the building. We borrowed traffic cones. We somehow managed to figure out this crazy system of emailing orders, because I didn't have any type. I'm still a small business. I didn't have like major e-commerce set up on our website like everybody does now. And so I just started getting on this whole, like, I'm looking at myself talking weirdness. I started getting on and like saying hi to everybody, and this is crazy, and here's what we have to sell. I felt like Vanna White sometimes, or like QVC, like, look at this, because we still have a handful of locally and regionally made like products that are kind of line the shelves around the outside of the market. And then we have tons of prepared food now that we didn't have when we first started. And that sort of all just exploded after we put the tables in. We were able to, house people for a meal, but then also have food that they can take home. So I'm literally like selling stuff like QVC on this video in the morning. I run into people, a year later in the store, and they're like, that's the Pine Valley girl. We used to watch her while we ate breakfast to find out what we were going to get later that day for lunch. It was crazy. But we took orders over email and over the phone, and we had them put their name on a big piece of paper in the window of their car, and they'd pay over the phone, and we'd run out, and we'd look at the window, and then we'd come back in and grab a bag, and they'd pop their trunk, put it in the trunk, and go. It was exhausting. It was just as exhausting as that sounded. But it was crazy. It was fun. And I didn't know what else to do. I can't not do. And so that was sort of the forced pivot that evolved into an e-commerce progression. We were able to put everything online. I still did the videos every day because they came sort of like this tradition. We did finally manage to obviously open back up. And that was probably some of the largest, or one of the, I guess the second biggest pivot or change for us. And that is that prior to, we were doing things the hard way, and I knew it. Kind of go back to what I mentioned in the beginning, is sometimes but you're stuck, and you can't, all these reasons why not to, even though the reason to do it is far more important. There's so many things holding you back. And so for me, like, we had this beautiful deli case every morning that had pans in it. And we put the chicken salad or the broccoli salad, and they lined up the whole thing. And if you came in and you wanted something, we could put a spoon in there and give you a taste. We could scoop out what you wanted and pack it in any size. It was a crazy amount of labor. But it looked so good and it offered so many opportunities for people. I had all these reasons, but really the pandemic forced us to just prepackage everything. And so that's what we did. And we've not gone back. And we turn our product, we move so much more product now than we did. We save so much on labor than we did, that's like a whole different talk to talk about labor, cost of labor, people who actually want to work. That's like a different thing, but it is a challenge. And this industry in particular is suffering and is struggling. And so hats off to anybody that's watching this, that is in this industry, and doing what you love and serving people. Cause it's not an easy one, but it's a fun one. And it's one of the most rewarding. And so for those of you that are out and about, please be thankful to those people that are waiting on you and serving you and taking care of you, because they're the ones that are showing up. It's not perfect yet, but we're definitely getting better. I think we've got a really tremendous staff here. I've got people that have been with me for 10 years. But we have some new people that I feel really honored, really blessed that have joined our team. I'm really hopeful for sort of what's to come now. But those big changes that we made in how we present our food and how we package our food were things that were on the table of discussion in 2018, in 2019, probably in 2007, when there'd be meeting after meeting about how they didn't clean the pans right or turn the pans right or didn't look good or whatever. And we just never did it. And that forced us to do it. So curbside, online ordering, all those things that sort of make our business a little bit easier. It has its challenges, but it allows us just to provide a better service for our customers. And that's kind of it. And so where are we now? What now? For me, we are plugging ahead with catering. We are really trying to apply some of what we've learned in the last 3 years in particular to other aspects of our business and make those changes and look at numbers and be a little more tactical about what we need to do so that we can stay relevant. I really believe that had some of these major things I mentioned not happened, that we wouldn't be here. The pandemic in particular, and absolutely the recession, without the changes we made and were forced to make in those 2 times in our lives, we would not have weathered those storms. And so I'm grateful for those opportunities to think and be forced to think outside the box sometimes, and be forced sometimes to just try things that, hey, listen, if it works, great. If it doesn't work, we have nothing to lose at this point. So here we are moving forward. I hope that those of you that have listened will venture down to Wilmington if you're not local. We're right here on College Road. So as you come in from 40, just keep going past the college 3-4 miles, and we're on the right-hand side next to Ace Hardware. If you're heading to Carolina Beach, the liquor store is just like 3 doors down. So if you see that, turn around, come see us. I hope you'll come visit, say hello, and that's it. Thanks for joining. Thanks for having me. I don't know if Stacy left us. I don't know if all of you left us.
Not in any way. So before we get into questions, Christy, as a member of a Wilmington family since the 70s, I just want to thank you so much for all that you do for the community and being there through all of these natural disasters and these pandemic and all these things, because power of place is real and it's so special. So thank you so much for that.
Absolutely.
So I have a couple questions for you.
Awesome.
The first one, hold on just one second, let me scroll down. So you mentioned your dad and what an incredible impact he had on your community growing up. Did he inspire you? And if so, what kind of inspiration did he provide you?
My dad was stubborn as a mule. He passed away in 2014. He just never let anything knock him down. He loved to eat He loved to watch people eat what he made. I think that probably gave him more joy than anything else. As an adult looking back, the fact that he literally fixed vacuum cleaners and coffee pots and things that we throw away now in this society, which just drove him crazy. That's what he did. And he raised a family of 5. He took all of us to Italy at some point. We didn't get to all go together, but he went multiple times with different ones of us. He left my mom well to finish out, her years with us. So I just have always stood in awe of his ability to not give up. And he certainly had things that knocked him down. I mean, if I could talk to him today, I'm sure that the invention of the Dyson was the bane of his existence, because it was that sort of affordable thing that anybody could go to Walmart and buy at the time, and it would cost more than that to fix the $900 handmade Kirby vacuum, which he would bang his fist on the counter that that's a better vacuum. So he was forced to change some things in his career as well. So he was stubborn, but he was also always there for his community. And I definitely picked that up along the way.
So I think that a lot of us tuning in have probably spent some time in Wilmington and, hopefully experienced its magic. Did you meet any challenges when you moved there? And if so, what were those challenges?
We were really fortunate. Kathy went to school here at UNCW. She moved 2 of her friends here back then. I won't give years. And she was here 6 months, and then she said, I gotta go, I got a job. And they stayed, and they've built a tremendous business in this town. And so we were really fortunate to sort of come in with some big not backing financially, just cheerleaders. They own a hair salon in town, and they see a lot of people naturally. And so at that time it was like, go see our friends down at Pine Valley Market. So that was really, really helpful. I think anytime you're in a new community, I mean, I still had to learn. First of all, I had to learn what running a commercial kitchen was. I had not a clue in the world what I was doing. I'm the first one to admit that. I'm a really fast learner, thank God. But I think that the challenges in this industry are networking and finding the right people. And networking wasn't as easy then. I had a flip phone. I think it was a flip phone. It wasn't even a BlackBerry. It was a Nextel Connect. That's how far back that was. So just finding who was going to work on your air conditioning that was, going to take care of you and not mess you up, or who was going to work on your refrigeration. Those are challenges when you're starting a business in a community where you really don't know anybody. I also, being a female, owning what then was a butcher shop, we do pre-cut meats now it's a whole different thing, but it was more of a butcher shop. And so there were a lot of people, even the people that sold to us, that were like, they won't make it a year. And, that is just kerosene on a fire to me, bring it. Okay. So yeah, I think it was a lot of doubters.
So Travis says, I live in the northern part of Wilmington, and we do have NOMA on this side of town. Are you familiar with them? And have you considered another location on this side of town?
Heck no. So NOMA is Jenny and Alan Looper. They were customers of mine, and actually might be customers again. I think they have a son getting married. We talked. But it's funny enough, Alan celebrated a birthday for one of their friends. It was one of the first little in-home dinners that we did. It's a really funny story that we all joke about. So they've been customers for a long time. We did their Christmas party for years. And when they bought that location, I was super excited for them. We share product, when we couldn't get biscuits because of some weird pandemic shortage, whatever, but we had some and they needed them. We are super friendly competitors in a sense, but I think we offer a really similar service to different sides of town. So I don't want to be in their backyard. I don't want them in my backyard. And I don't think that any of us really want to have multiple things to manage. This is a lot. I have ventured out to do we've done different things. We had a restaurant in the Cameron Art Museum at one point. We talked about we had a downtown location the year before the year we adopted Alex. We had a little downtown shop, and it's a lot. So we have all we can handle in this little store. We crank out a lot of stuff. And I think that my focus here is just where it needs to be.
Jean says, I have been to Pine Valley Market and to Christie's catered parties, and it's all fabulous. It was great to
Oh.
learn more about her and her journey.
Thank you so much.
So that wraps up all the questions that we have. Christy, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us this evening and to share this incredible journey with us. And also for all the incredible work that you and the Pine Valley Market team do for the community. You're so inspiring, and all of you are inspiring, and we thank you so much.
Thank you. Wherever you are in this world, keep supporting local businesses. I know that the chains are out there, but it does not go unnoticed to places like us. Thank you.
So I've dropped Pine Valley Market's website in the chat. So check that out if you are in the Wilmington area, or if you're not and you want to find some way to connect. And we hope that you will join us for our next adult evening program, History and Highballs East Fork Pottery, with artist Alex Matisse. That's happening Thursday, August 25th at 7 p.m. We hope that all of you have a wonderful rest of your evening. Thank you, Christy. Take care, everybody.
Have a good night.
Have a good night.